good evening, and welcome to World Kidney News International. I am your host, Steve Belcher. Thank you for joining us. Man, tonight is going to be an awesome show. I can't tell you how excited I am to have this company on World Kidney News tonight. Look, share this broadcast because a lot of you guys that's watching this broadcast, you may never heard of Caredx. And if you have, you've seen these guys. Let me just show you some of the pictures. You've seen them. You've seen the logo. They're in the transplant community. You see Sean Elliott, spokesperson for them, kidney transplant. They even had the first African-American female transplant surgeon, Dr. Scattlebury. And they also had my man, Chef Javon, on this show. So these guys are definitely on point, and they impaired in Forbes. Peter Mag, the CEO, he says the AlloCare app is a big piece of that puzzle because it enables patients to monitor important metrics in one app and gives their new organ and themselves the best chance of surviving for many years to come. And I'm sure a lot of transplant warriors want to hear news like that, right? Now, let me just read you a brief statement. Well, not a statement, but a little bit about Caredx. Again, you see these guys at all events, and you're probably saying, what do they do? Who are they? Well, let me just tell you a little bit. Caredx is a precision, well, first they're a biotechnology company. They're a precision medicine solution company as well, improving transplant patient outcomes by providing innovative solutions through the entire patient journey. Their mission statement goes on to say, we are committed to improving transplant patient outcomes by providing innovative and intelligent solutions throughout the entire patient journey. And before I bring our guest on, I'd just like to thank the marketing team, especially Rana Mukhalid, who set this up. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share Greg's story. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on the Senior VP of Sales and Testing Service, no other than Greg Quinn. We got to give him the special VIP because, again, this is royalty. As I said, we had Paul Conway, who served under 8 presidents. This is another royalty. So let's give him the special VIP treatment. Hey, Greg, how you doing?
Good, great, Steve. Thanks so much for the warm introduction. Welcome.
Thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule, coming on and sharing information about Caredx and your journey with your daughter. That's going to be a great story to share in our second half. So, Greg, tell us a little bit about Caredx. What do you actually do for them? I know you're vice president of sales, but what does that entail?
Yeah, thanks for asking. And you know, first I want to just say thanks for having us on. And you know, I was mentioning to you earlier this week that it's all of these groups, these organizations that really make the field of transplant so enjoyable and so worthwhile to be a part of. So thanks for all that you guys do. And at Caredx, you know, you mentioned it in the introduction. If there's one thing that you should all take away from tonight, it is that Caredx is all we do every day. All 500 of us go to work every day, and we get the privilege to serve transplant patients. That's all we do. That's all we know. We know it really well. We learn every day. But you know, if you walk away from tonight just knowing that Caredx, the only thing we focus on, and we can be laser focused on, when you only have to worry about one disease state or one healthcare condition, and that's what we do. It's transplantation. As the senior vice president of testing services and sales, I'm just a part of a big team that brings awareness to doctors, to patient groups, and to the entire healthcare ecosystem about what we're doing and how we can, as you mentioned, our goal is, these biopsies that are very invasive. They're very good and they're very, they're necessary, but do we need to do them as much as we do them? Do we need to do them when the patients are doing well and it's just a day on the calendar, or are there other solutions, non-invasive, molecular diagnostics? You'll hear me talk about molecular, which is really just boils down to DNA, right? Getting the right DNA, typing and testing and post-transplant care. And so how can we, so my job is fun. It's bringing awareness to the tools that we offer to doctors and patients, and making it available to the entire transplant community.
Well, Greg, let me ask you, because I'm really new to like Caredx and everything that they do, the services, but I have a friend that's a patient and she's dealing with the BK virus. Now, in the introduction, I mentioned that Caredx, your mission statement, we are committed to improving transplant patients' outcomes by providing innovative and intelligent solutions throughout the entire patient journey. Does anything in there can be applied to eradicating or keeping this BK virus under control? Because this person's kidney function since their transplant and dealing with these high numbers has decreased drastically.
Yeah. So as far as eradicating, that's more the therapeutics, right? But what our testing will do, and I'll go more in depth on what our testing actually is. Ours is about early detection of, injury. We talk about injury. There's many different ways that the new kidney can get injured, or the new organ that's transplanted can get injured. And the virus BK is one of them, obviously. And so our test, specifically AlloSure, which you'll hear me talk a lot about tonight, it's really our flagship test, if you will. And AlloSure picks up earlier than any other test available out there. It'll pick up on this injury earlier. And I'm gonna break down what AlloSure is, and that's it. It's called donor-derived cell-free DNA. And what that really means is, I'll try to keep it really simple, because I'm a simpleton, so I need to keep things simple.
Okay.
And I'll do so for you too. But so imagine when patients get their new kidney, it also comes with the donor's DNA, and in the transplant goes well, and so that DNA from the donor is now a small portion of it is now in the recipient, along with the recipient's DNA in their blood. And we know through rigorous and a long-standing amount of research and development through Stanford, where donor-derived cell-free DNA was made possible for transplant patients, is that as the percentage of the donor's DNA starts to increase in the recipient's DNA through a simple blood test, we can see it through a simple blood test, that's an early sign of something's going on, some type of injury. It could be BK, it could be cellular rejection, it could be antibody mediated rejection. But I always say, it's that smoke alarm in the house it's your best smoke alarm. It's going to go off at the first sniff of anything going on. And so now it's up to the doctors and the team to say, okay, what is the injury, and let's intervene early. And we know that through earlier intervention, better outcomes long term.
So does a transplant center need to participate with Caredx in order to do that type of testing? Say, for instance, I'm here in Washington, D.C., and if a person in Baltimore was dealing with some issues and they went to University of Maryland, would they need to like partner with CareDx to use that AlloCare to do that type of testing, or how does that work? If somebody's watching this right now and they say, I want to get that done to try to see if I'm having any injury or anything that could be lurking in the dark.
Great question. And yes, the answer to your question is yes. The good news though is AlloSure just turned 3 in October, being commercially available. And we have now partnered, as you mentioned, or available in more than 150 kidney transplant centers in the country.
Wow.
Many of them are using it as standard of care, including the 2 in your backyard, Maryland and Johns Hopkins. And so it's a send out kit. And a lot of centers who've adopted AlloSure as their standard of care on a protocol, a post-treatment protocol. When the patient goes in for their routine blood, their labs, their serum creatinine and their CBC and all the other routine labs you're getting, AlloSure is paired with that. And so while the venipuncture is in, the phlebotomist, puts does the venipuncture and just adds a tube of blood, and then ours is what's known as a send out kit. So they box it up, they overnight it to our lab in San Francisco. And we run the test and get that result back the next day or two right thereafter, right to the transplant team. So yes, widely available, completely covered by Medicare, which is great news, especially now since the news of the extension or the great news from Congress about the immunosuppression bill that was passed. Great news there. So so widely available.
That's awesome. Greg, I had a question for you. With misinformation and conspiracy theories circulating about vaccination, real objectives behind COVID testing, as well as some minority groups' historical negative experience with medical testing and research in the United States, how does CareDx go about addressing any mistrust transplant patients might have with regard to blood testing that involves concept of genetics?
Yeah, fair question. I think we've been around for 20 years, CareDx has. We're new to a lot of people, and a lot of people associate our company with AlloSure, which, as I mentioned, is really the cell-free DNA. But we've been around for 20 years in transplant, and we were first launched in heart transplant, a test called AlloMap, which is another genetic expression test. And I think to directly answer your question, we have a 20-year track record in the field of transplantation. We let the science and the data do the talking. And I don't know, I'm not a political guy, and I'm not certainly going down that road. But I think looking back in the last 10 months, if we can let the data do the talking and let the data guide us, then we'll, that seems to be a winning formula for us at CareDx. And we do it through multi-center prospective trials and registries. And we don't, every center has different patient populations, and they want to see, just because Maryland saw some great information from AlloSure in their study, that doesn't mean as much to, so let's say Johns Hopkins down the road. They want to see it in there. So we have a platform to say, hey, you know what? We're learning too. So let's learn together. And we invite you to be part of this registry or this trial, and let's go at it together type of approach. And that's been a winning formula for us for 20 years, Steve.
Oh, that's awesome. Also, African Americans are more likely to have issues with kidney transplant, such as higher incidence of rejection and I hate to say this, compliance issues. With that being said, does CareDx know of any transplant clinicians that have published any studies on how AlloSure testing might be useful in helping improve transplant graft and patient outcomes for African Americans?
I'm off the top of my head. I want to say I've seen a couple, and what I can promise to do to you is follow up, and I will send you links to any articles that some of our doctors. I don't want to
Sure.
misspeak or misquote anyone, but I know there's been a number of ways that AlloSure has helped different patient populations. So let me send you some links to those, and you can send it to this group as a follow up. Is that good?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, Greg.
Great.
Now, Greg, why isn't AlloSure talked about enough? Because honestly, I've been doing dialysis like 33 years, and I wasn't in the transplant realm of it, but when I was working in the dialysis units, stuff like that, I never heard of Caredx until 2019 when we were invited to the AAKP annual meeting and we had a booth there. And that was my first time ever hearing the Caredx. Why do you think it's not promoted enough in smaller units or smaller urban communities to put this out there so patients that may have issues with kidney transplant rejection or maybe compliances can benefit from this testing?
Yeah, and I think really it comes down to when you have a new product, if you will, a new service and a new lab test like we've launched. A lot of things come and go, and a lot of things tend to in the medical community, unfortunately, overpromise and underdeliver. And we took the approach when we got Medicare coverage. Let's do it the right way. Let's be the right partner with transplant centers and transplant patients. And again, I go back to what I was saying earlier of, let's let each center figure out on their own how they see AlloSure fitting into their patient population, rather than some in the past have been very aggressive. So we've but I'll also say our growth has been exponential. I joined 3 years ago, January. So I just had my 3-year birthday here at Caredx, and
Congratulations.
Thank you. When I joined, we were 100 employees, and now we're 500. And
Wow.
and so I think we're at a tipping point right now, Steve, where, as I mentioned, a lot of these centers now, it's standard of care. So it's like when you get your serum creatinine now, those patients say, what was my AlloSure score? And as I mentioned, that becomes as a percentage of the donor's DNA in relationship to the recipient's DNA. And so it's just a matter of time. And I think 2021, that the way even through COVID and all the things we did as an organization through COVID to make AlloSure more available to patients through mobile solutions and other things, it's really, we're at a tipping point, and it's only a matter of months, if not maybe a year or two, until it is really it's just part of the routine post transplant.
I can see that. I can see you're on your way there. What has been the biggest challenge with CareDx and getting this information out to the popular? I mean, I know you're out there, but what has been the biggest challenge with CareDx?
It really comes, I would say it's integration. And, these health systems are so complex. And so if we can think of a world where the doctor wants to order the AlloSure as along with all the other tests, but it's not in the EMR system, right? It's not in that digital health record, if you will. And so it's a manual. They have to now write a manual order, and then on the back end, the result gets faxed at some places where it's not integrated yet into the Epic or the Cerner or whatever that chart is, that digital chart, that EMR system. So that's been something that when you're a send out laboratory like we are, that I'd say when we get what we found at centers, transplant centers, when we have full integration, bidirectional integration, the ease of use, the convenience of use for the staff, the doctors, the patients, the nurses. It needs to be turnkey. It needs to be easy. And so I say that's been our biggest challenge. But we've had a number of integrations just in the last 6 months, and once you figure out the first few or so, that the rest kind of the dominoes fall, if you will.
Greg, I was looking at this comment by S.J. Day. He says, he or she, I'm not sure, but they say, I've been able to avoid biopsies because of the test offered through Caredx. Now, with that being said, not everybody has that experience. And we know that biopsies are really unpleasant for a lot of people. Why do you think that patients that are scheduled for biopsies, these doctors don't tell them about AlloSure or doing another way of biopsy without having to stick that needle in them? Is it a cost thing, a money thing when it comes to biopsy, putting the patient at risk, far as with the needle stick opposed to AlloSure?
I don't have every center is so different. So I don't want to paint them all with the same brush.
No,
but
I
will say though that we have, when a team of doctors at a transplant center has what we call the aha moment, right? Where AlloSure was, everything else was looking good. Serum creatinine seemed to be really good. Everything else was looking good. Patients seemed to be doing well. But the AlloSure started to rise. And when I say started to rise, maybe went from 0.21, which is that 0.21 is the threshold that when you get your result back and 0.21% of the blood sample is 0.21 or lower is the donor's DNA, and the other 99.8, if you will, DNA is from the actual recipient. There's a 95% negative predictive value that nothing is going on in terms of injury. So everything is good. But as that starts to rise, Steve, starts to tick up, that's that early smoke detector I was talking about. And so,
absolutely.
So when centers see this start to rise, and and then the serum creatinine usually follows later, the kind of trailing. And so when they can predict that earlier with AlloSure, that's an aha moment. Or another on the flip side of that is when the serum creatinine maybe is bouncing around. And as we all know, if you eat a salty dinner and you drink a bunch of water, it could affect your serum creatinine. And so as that starts to bounce around, but the AlloSure is staying really low in the patient, again, with that really high negative predictive value, that there's no need to do anything with that patient. And then, centers will biopsy as they're getting new to AlloSure, they'll biopsy that patient. And it's only a number of 10, 20 times that they say, well, we didn't need to biopsy. Biopsy came back perfectly clean. We should have listened to AlloSure, kind of thing. And so, to answer SJ's question there, or to address his comment, there are centers who have replaced a lot of biopsies because of AlloSure. But again, every center's on a different part of that adoption curve, if you will. And that's where we on the sales team and the clinical team try to help them see these aha moments where AlloSure is really strong in suggesting that they don't need to worry about the kidney, or they should start to worry about the kidney.
So let me ask you this, Greg. If somebody was watching right now, right, that had a transplant, and say they wanted to do AlloSure testing, and the hospital or the center that they go to doesn't adopt to that, can they request that? Or instead of, like, if they had some issues going on and they want to do a biopsy and they see this show, they say, no, I saw Mr. Quinn on there talking about AlloSure, I want to try that. And if their facility doesn't do that, Do you know if there's an alternative for them?
Well, it does have to come with a doctor's order. So, sometimes in kidney transplant, post-transplant management, these patients are monitored. They're, co-managed, if you will, by maybe a local nephrologist. And
Sure.
so, there's a path. But I would say one of the highlights at Caredx that we have a team of 50 plus patient care managers, many of who are former transplant nurse coordinators who all day and every day they call transplant patients. They call patients, they help them schedule their blood draws, they help them figure out a way to make AlloSure accessible to them. And so without knowing every nuance, to answer your question very generally, there's a way. And I always go back, Steve, to this is, and I'll put my patient hat on because I'll share with you in a little bit about my daughter. So
sure.
I have to be careful. Sometimes I wear the company hat and sometimes I put on the patient hat. But I think as patients, Steve, it's up to us sometimes. We have to push the envelope. We have to go in. And if my transplant team, my daughter's transplant team, doesn't do something, I'm going to push them and say, hey, can we learn about this together? Can we get this test done? And let's learn about it together. And so I think be your own advocate is what I always tell patients.
Absolutely. That's what I was going to say. Do your own research. So one more question about Caredx, and then definitely want to hear about your inspirational story. Greg, can you expand more on how Caredx has creative, innovative solutions within the transplant space during this pandemic, and where Caredx envisions how its innovations will impact transplant patients in the future?
Yeah. So in March, the first countrywide stay-at-home, really the big shutdown happened in March. We were contacted, we being Caredx, we were contacted by about 12 transplant centers. I said, we have a problem and we need your help. And that problem was, we don't want our patients who are 1, 2, 3 years and beyond post-transplant, we don't want them coming into our hospital for their regular clinic visit. In fact, we don't even want them going to LabCorp requests to get their bloods drawn, because we don't know what's going on with this virus, and we don't want them to leave home. And within 72 hours, under the leadership of my president and CEO, Reg Cito, and chairman of the board, Peter Mogg, a SWAT team over that weekend, it was like March 10th or March 11th, we launched what's known as RemoTrack. It stands for Remote Transplant Care. And what RemoTrack does, Steve, it does that. For the last 10 months, we've helped over 6,000 transplant patients now through RemoTrack. We bring mobile phlebotomy to the patient's home, and not only does the patient get the AlloSure, they get all their other routine labs drawn. So it's just like the patient were to walk into their hospital lab and get their blood drawn, except we come to them, or we'll go to their work. We'll go wherever they feel safe. We've because of this wild demand that has occurred with RemoTrack over the last 10 months, we've now partnered with 10,000 mobile phlebotomists throughout the country. So there's not many little pockets that we can't get to. And we take care of the cost for the patients. AlloSure is covered by Medicare, but the cost of the phlebotomy is part of the RemoTrack. And the other routine labs, it would be just as if the patient walked into Quest or LabCorp or wherever they go for their routine labs. It would be no different. All of our phlebotomists have the full PPE. They do regular daily checks to make sure that they're safe and they're staying safe. And so it's just been an amazing journey to provide this service to patients. And we've done 2 or 3 other things. One is we teamed up with a bunch of centers and started a registry of all transplant patients who get COVID. We want to track, we want to understand what those immune suppression drugs are, how that's interacting with the virus. And then we launched AlloCare in the midst of this pandemic, which is a patient app made specifically for transplant patients and kidney transplant patients in mind, obviously.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so if anybody's watching, y'all need to go over to Caredx site and go through that information. And if you have any questions, I'm sure they have a team that you can reach out to over there to answer any questions. But CareDx need to get out there for a lot of patients that have transplants so they can know about what's going on with AlloSure. So I'm just going to bring in a quick, small little brief moment. Then we're going to come back and talk about your story. Okay, Greg?
Thanks, Steve.
All right, here we go, guys. We'll be right back. All right, guys, we're back. Greg, you have an amazing story. I had an opportunity to, read your bio, and like I said, I want to put a picture up of your, you and your daughter. Let me move this banner. I want to tell you, man, you have a very beautiful little girl, man. I mean, she can break some hearts.
Yeah.
But share your story about your daughter with us.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share, Steve. That's little Madeline there. Madeline's 7 years old, and she's our miracle, Steve. She lives her fullest life every day, but she wouldn't be here today if it weren't for this amazing field of transplantation. For donors, certainly, I want to make sure that we recognize all the donors out there, the real heroes in this world of, filled with so much bad news out there. These donors are amazing individuals, completely selfless. And so Madeline was born with a congenital heart defect, a little hole in her heart. And we thought, well, a little heart murmur, okay, she'll be okay. But it got worse. And so we took her to Stanford when she was about 5 or 6 months old. And that's where they diagnosed that even though the murmur, the hole was small by size, it was the location it was close to the aortic valve. So they recommended that they close the hole. They had to open her chest and close the hole, fix the valve a little bit, and then she'd be fine. And well, unfortunately, she developed heart block. So 10 days later, they had to go back in, open her up again, and now they put in a pacemaker, and that pacemaker failed. And real long story short, but about 2 years time, where she had 3 open heart surgeries, 2 different pacemakers, and finally, it was November of 2014. So she was about a year and a half old. They said, you know what, it's time we talked to you about a heart transplant. And that was one of the heaviest, most daunting, overwhelming conversations that, I've ever had to be a part of. But we waited 4 months. We got the call. It was March 4th of 2015. I'll never forget it. We were doing our nightly ritual. Madeline had just been put down to bed, and she was about a week away from having to be hospitalized full time with, put on a permanent device to keep her heart going. So really complete heart failure. And
is that like an LVAD or something like that?
Yeah, exactly, an LVAD. Yes. And so we got the call, and it was a great match. Call I'll never forget. We rushed her into Stanford. On March 5th, the transplant, happened, and we got her back, on the 6th, and it was a miracle beyond words I could ever share with you guys, but you all lived it. It was like a light switch for her entire life. I never touched her cheeks or her fingertips and felt warmth, or I did. This was the first time. Her cheeks were rosy. She, after, she had a feeding tube for the first 2 years of her life because she didn't really know how to eat. she wasn't hungry ever. And so they warned us that she's probably going to have to go home on a feeding tube even after the transplant because she didn't really learn how to eat. Well, Steve, she had 2 plates at her first meal post-transplant, and she was still hungry. So,
Wow.
so they let us rip that feeding tube out, and it's been no looking back. And you know, I was a vice president of sales for a different diagnostics company in ironically in cardiovascular disease at the time, and so I've been doing molecular diagnostics for years and years. But I'll never forget it. A day or two after her transplant, we were approached bedside by a research coordinator. I'm sure many of you had that experience where they come and they ask you if you're interested in being part of this research project. And this research project that they described to us, they said every time we take her labs, we draw her blood, we're going to take we want to take a little bit more, and that sample is going to go up to a lab up the road. And the hope is that someday we can replace biopsies or at least minimize biopsies. And I looked at my wife and we shook our heads and said, yeah, because if it's not going to help her, it's going to help some people someday. So yes, let's get her in it. Long story short, that company that blood went to is Caredx. And so that kind of began this process of, I said, I need to find out more about this company. Well, I mean, I have the chills right now talking about it, but my professional passion met my personal passion. And I'm Caredx through and through because I see what we do. I see the amount of science and rigor and dedication. Everyone at our company, Steve, has some connection to transplantation. And so we don't ever have to wake up and say, where's my passion going to come from today? It comes to serve all of you and all the people on this call and all the transplant patients, because we all live it. And it's a fantastic company. And I'm so lucky that I've been through what I've been through with Madeline, and I get to be a part of something now that's making this journey, this very difficult journey, that much easier on these patients.
Right. This is a gentleman that's watching that I'd just like to say hello to, and that's Gene Shamando. Had the opportunity of meeting Gene. He's a heart transplant recipient, and this picture is taken in front of my parents' front yard about 2 years ago when Gene walked from the Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic, I believe it is, to Washington, D.C. And he told me the story that he spoke at the same event with your daughter. This is him holding the Donate Life in my parents' living room that we had an opportunity to sign. Here it is here, my mom over to the right, and me signing his banner that he took with him. And I get the chills even thinking about this and he telling me the story. Was this the event that he spoke at?
It was. I'm glad you brought that picture up. I was just going to say that's the picture. So yeah, this was the soiree in Virginia. They do an annual soiree, a fundraiser, and they asked Madeline to be the keynote speaker. And yeah, good to see you again through the virtual connectivity. And yeah, it was great seeing you that night. But yeah, Madeline shared her story, and she got the crowd going, and she even made a funny comment. She said, "Now it's time to take out your wallets and make sure that we donate lots of money to continue this great mission that we're on."
Oh man, I know if I was there, I'd probably be pulling out my wallet even if I didn't have anything. Wow. This is just so awesome. How is Maddie doing today?
She's living her best life, Steve. I really, don't want to sugarcoat it or anything, but it's, the most important thing for us each and every day is no question her medication. 7:30, 1:30, 7:30, clockwork. She's got a watch. She's got alarms. She's got a support system. Even a couple of her friends, her girlfriends, remind her at school. And we're sponges when it comes to how can we make sure that her and all her buddies that she's met along the way, transplant buddies, go through this, because we do worry a little bit about adolescence. We hear that's a tough time where kids want independence and they think, I don't need to take my meds today. And, or, I missed my meds yesterday. I feel fine. Everyone gave me the impression that my heart's just going to stop, or my kidney's going to stop filtering, whatever. And so we worry, but I think, we ingrained it in her, we empower her now, and we want her to think it's cool, because it is cool. And we also, so she's doing great. She's in second grade. Knock on wood, she's very healthy. And so all that aside, she's thriving. And she loves sharing her story. One of the neatest things we did in this whole journey, we took her to the transplant Olympics, the transplant games in Salt Lake City a couple of years ago. And she won a silver medal. She likes to brag about that. Yeah. But she got to meet this is where an event that she really broke out of her shell from a personality perspective, because she, I think that's where she saw she's not different. Just because it's not happening to kids at her school, it's happening. And she met 4 or 5 buddies that they stay in touch with all the time. And so that's what makes this group here. All these groups, all these small local groups, the larger groups like yours, it's what makes it, because we need each other. This is such a new field still. I mean, really, when you think about it. So we all need each other.
Absolutely. What is in the future for Maddie? Is she going to be doing more speaking engagements once we get this COVID, under kind of wraps?
Yeah, she's got a few interests, passions. One is she loves it to draw. She's an artist, and actually she won the Caredx holiday. Yeah, the holiday Christmas card. Yeah, the holiday card. So that was her design on the cover. Hopefully, a lot of you guys got that card with the unicorn and the snowman. So she loves drawing. She does love, bringing awareness to what she's been through, to make sure that we can, we got to get more donors. That's at the end of the day, that's what we all need to push. And then she's a big golfer. She takes after her dad. Her dad loves taking her golfing, and you should see her. Okay. Yeah, you should see her swing. She's got a beautiful little swing. So I don't know, whatever it is, it's going to be something special. She's a special little girl.
Wow. She don't get no mulligans, do she?
No. She's going to give me strokes. She's going to be giving me strokes.
Right. Hey, Greg, I know you and your wife been through a lot when your daughter was born, uncertainties, probably a lot of anxiety. Going through that, what would you suggest, or what could you say to a parent that's maybe watching right now that could have a child that needs a heart transplant, or a liver, maybe has cystic fibrosis, or even a kidney transplant, dealing with a young child at that age? What could you share with them that help them through that?
I love that question, Steve. It's talk about it. It's share your story, share what you're going through. At the beginning, we were maybe a little like, we don't want to burden other people, but we weren't looking at it the right way, because by talking about it, you're bringing awareness, but you never know. You never know. So share your story, talk about it. And then the one thing that, that my wife and I have, I wish we had more time. We all wish we had more time. But one thing that, I always wish I had going through it, I just wanted to find another dad similar to what I was going through, because I was trying to be strong for my wife and my daughter, obviously. And so we all need that escape, if you will. And so
a support group.
And so I've talked to, now we're at UCLA where Maddie is cared for, and I always, whenever I go to patient advocacy groups, and I'll give it to you guys, my email, my cell phone. If you're a dad going through this, or anyone going through this, and you just want to talk, you want to vent, that's what we need. And I think, going back to the AlloCare app that we just launched, that's our biggest goal of it. bringing together a patient community that we talk about things and we learn from each other.
Absolutely, absolutely. Greg, what do you want people to know about Caredx and what they do? I mean, how could we penetrate the population more to get Caredx out there beyond the social media realm and into the physical realm of people who deal with this on a daily basis? Again, I have friends who are dealing with the BK virus right now, biopsy, thinking about it. But how could we get CareDx out in the community, and what do you want people to know about CareDx?
Well, and we talked a little bit about it, but I really do. I opened with it, and I know we're getting. I don't know how long you're going on your show, but I don't want to overextend.
So we got about 10 minutes.
Okay, so yeah, so it's really about the patient. It's what drives us. As I mentioned, we get up every day and we go to work, and we are such a patient-focused company. Every healthcare company says they're patient-focused, but we do patient event. We host patient events. Pre-COVID, we bring patients out to San Francisco to see the lab, see where their blood's processed. We start every town hall, which is our monthly company meeting, with a patient. A patient comes and shares their story, and so that's what gets us going. So remember that about us. As far as how your organization, your followers can help us, is if you're a kidney transplant patient and you've never had an AlloSure, you're missing out. So ask your doctor. Don't ask. And if you really want one, it's covered by Medicare, and for all other insurances, we have an extremely friendly patient assistance program. But I would venture to guess a lot of you have Medicare, being a kidney transplant patient, so it's completely covered. So push your doctors, and it's your health. So I think that's it for me and for CareDx, how you can help us. You have to take matters into your own hands. Ask for the AlloSure. We have, as I mentioned, we have over 50 patient care managers, all who are very qualified and talking to transplant patients about the process of getting an AlloSure. And we're not a one test company, and that's the last thing I want you guys to know is we are this innovation company in Silicon Valley that continues to develop. We're looking in urine right now, right? Because blood might not be as easily accessible as urine. So are there ways through the urine to come up with better molecular tools? And so on and on. And that's what's really neat about being a transplant focused company, is that we know what we're good at, and we're going to continue down that path to continue to bring these non-invasive, so whether it's blood, whether it's urine, non-invasive tests to all the patients out there, so that they don't have to go through as many of these invasive procedures.
Absolutely. And I was just looking here at CareDx, 20 years of leadership, 4 areas of transplant innovation, testing services, transplant lab products, digital transplant solutions, and pharma service. Everything under one roof. You can't beat it.
Yeah. We joke. We even joke sometimes, Steve, that we have a small transplant center at CareDx, because our chief medical officer and senior vice president of medical affairs is a liver and kidney surgeon from Oxford, and we have pharmacists, transplant pharmacists on our team as medical science liaisons. We have actual transplant patients who work in our research department, and so many that it's like we have the patients, we have the nurses, we have the pharmacists, we have the surgeons, and we have nephrologists on board, and we're so committed, we're so passionate, and it's so fun to be part of it.
That's awesome. I have your website up, www.caredx.com, and I recommend anybody watching this that never heard of CareDx, that has a transplant or that's on the transplant list waiting, I highly recommend reaching out to CareDx. Go to their website and look at their services, because this could definitely benefit you And even like Greg said, if your transplant center doesn't participate, you can check with CareDx and get with one of their care managers. I mean, it's Medicare paid is reimbursed by Medicare, right?
Completely reimbursed, 100% reimbursed by Medicare. Absolutely. No patient cost for Medicare patients. Exactly.
Yeah, I just don't understand why a lot of transplant companies, especially in this area, don't really push this. So I want to make sure we do everything we can here at Urban Health Outreach Media, Greg, to promote CareDx and make sure people know about this because it's a good service. I mean, invasive, don't have to, get biopsy done, non-invasive procedures. Yeah. So, Greg, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to come on World Kidney News International. Any shout outs you want to give before we end the show?
My shout out tonight is to two people. It's to you for what you're doing. It takes all these, it takes all these grassroots efforts to bring awareness. And then, I always give my wife a shout out. She's the rock of the family. She keeps it all together. And as you mentioned, it was a journey, and it will forever be a journey. And that's how we think about it. It's one day at a time at our house. But when you go through this miracle journey that I've been on, that so many of you have been on, life is really good. It really is. And so, just take a moment and take it all in, because we're all very, very fortunate to be here, and to the donors. Again, all the donors out there, the donor families, we wouldn't be able to do any of this if it were not for you.
Awesome. I would like to extend invitation in the future. Maybe we could bring Maddie on and maybe have a 15-minute, half an hour talk about her experience.
She would love that. She would love that. She eats that up. So that would be great.
Okay. I'll reach out to you, on an appropriate time that we can do that. I would love to hear a story from her voice.
I love that. She would love that. And dad would love that too, Steve. And anytime, I'd love to come back and join you as well. So thanks.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You're a family now.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
So, Greg, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Greg Quinn, Senior Vice President of Sales and Testing Service for CareDx. Thank you so much, man, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on World Kidney News International.
Thank you very much.
Please thank Rhonda Mukhalit for setting this up. I really appreciate that.
I sure will. Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Everyone out there, stay very safe, and hope to see you all soon at some sort of patient event when we can all get together in person. It'll be long overdue. So thank you.
Absolutely, Greg. You stay safe, you and your family as well.
Thanks. Bye now.
All right. Take care.
Okay.
All right. Guys, man, I'm telling you, we coming with the fire this year, 2021, with the guests. Again, I'd like to thank the marketing team at CareDx, Rhonda Mukhalit, who set this up. I'd like to thank the CEO. Let me put his name up there. Give him some props. And I haven't even met him. Here we go. Peter Mack, thank you, sir, for allowing Greg Quinn to come on the show to talk about CareDx. Who else I want to thank? Man, this has just been an awesome show. I'm telling you. Lisa Baxter, she had a great show with Roberta Reed. Join us tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Redefine Renal Disease with Lamont Reed, right here on the Urban Health Outreach Media. Again, thank you guys for joining. This has been an awesome, awesome show. Let me see some of these. My man Gene, thanks for watching. I really appreciate you guys. As I showed you before, this is my buddy Gene from Ohio. heart transplant recipient, walked from the Cleveland Clinic to Washington, D.C. We're right there in front of my parents' house. Gene came down and broke bread with me, ate dinner. Mom fixed him a nice meal, had an opportunity to sign his banner. So, Gene, thank you, man, because this came in full circle when you told me the story about a year ago that you met Maddie, that you was out of breath, drove to Richmond in the car, and she walks past you, and here it is, I'm talking to her dad tonight. So, man, thank you for being a friend, coming by my parents' house and breaking bread with us. Again, we had on Greg Quinn, Senior Vice President, Caredx. This time we didn't get a chance to talk to his beautiful daughter, Maddie, but we will have her on the show, future date, to hear about her amazing story of having a heart transplant. So, guys, thank you. Jared Brown, Warriors Quest. Tune in this Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Thank you guys for watching. God bless you. We see you soon. Take care. Peace.